Well, let's wait and watch if that happens or no. Will Saudi Arabia and Russia able to get Iran on board? That's the key question, isn't it? And what's the amount of output hike that can emerge out of this compromise as well? Let's discuss all of this with Jonathan Barratt. He's Chief Investment Officer at Ayers Alliance. Jonathan, good morning and many thanks for joining in. What's your sense? The market seems to be going into this policy with an expectation that there will be an output hike that will be decided. Oil options data, though, suggests that traders are not betting heavily on this. What's your analysis or what's your assumption out here?
Well, I think when you just look at the price action for WTI and Brent this morning, we've seen quite an increase. In fact, we've actually seen more of an increase in WTI over Brent. So what the take-home, I think, is that any production increase will be small, and I actually get a sense that perhaps we might not get one at all. I feel that, from when we were talking 1.5 million barrels, Russia was talking, now we're hearing numbers of 300,000. These numbers in the whole scheme of things, are relatively small. I guess it's the rhetoric we're trying to work out as to what OPEC will do down the track and at other meetings. So I think quite critical, but the way the market's handling it, it's probably suggesting that it's going to be very small, if in fact at all.
So what's very small? I thought from what I read over the last 2 days, production rise of about 1 million barrels per day is something that key market participants are pricing in. Is that less? Is that what the market is anticipating? Or if that number comes around, you will go home a happy man, Jonathan?
Well, the numbers that we've been seeing are between 300,000 and 1 million, okay? And if in fact it is at that higher end of the bracket, around about 1 million, then I think it is becoming more meaningful. OPEC have got a lot to discuss, about, restrictions of supply from Iran, Iraq and Venezuela. We're looking at what's happening with the trade war and between China and the US. And mind you, when I look at OPEC, I think I'd be wanting to sit back to see how that trade war develops before I actually make a decision. So I think they've got a lot to think about, and as I suggested, 300,000 to 1 million is probably where the market is. I'm erring on a smaller amount, and that's why I think we're seeing prices move a little bit higher.
If the amount is indeed smaller, Jonathan, do you believe it has the potency to make crude prices inch higher from where they are right now? My simple question is, what will make crude move either direction?
Look, I think if we get nothing, then I think crude will trade to the top side. If we get something, it's more in the rhetoric that we're trying to say. We're saying, well, okay, we had an agreement on supply cuts. That agreement is until the end of the year. We're now changing that around. So I think if they do something, then the market will say, okay, well, look, if the oil price does move higher, well, then we'll obviously see more supply coming in from OPEC. So it's more, in my mind, the rhetoric that comes out of this meeting that is important. If it's a small amount of supply increase, but the rhetoric is, yes, we're going to be proactive in putting a top in the price of oil, well, so be it. And then we'll just have to see what happens to the price of oil before they react going down in the future.
Okay, so my last question, Jonathan, is if indeed the number that comes out is round about the million barrels per day, but they say that it's happening with Iran agreeing under certain conditions, and we can't preempt what those conditions would be. But just the number at that 1 million barrels per day, would that help crude prices ease off? Because they have come off ever so marginally, but they are off about 7 or 8% from the recent highs. Can they go down further?
Well, I think at the end of the day, 1 million barrels is a significant amount. But if we look at where the price action today is as we lead into the meeting, it's telling us another story. Yes, we've come lower, but the prices have reacted, and they've reacted to something today. So in my mind, that reaction is saying that, look, it's not going to be as much. But 1 million barrels is 1 million barrels, and that would suggest also that we'll see more down the track if oil prices go higher. So yes, quite important. If it is 1 million, then I think you'll see the prices will come under pressure. Of course, it says that OPEC are ready to pump when they actually need to. In my mind, that's more of a concern. If you do 1 million or anything higher, and you have problems with the trade war, then prices could significantly go lower, and I don't think that's what OPEC actually want.